Chapter 6, Lesson 1 is on the geography of Europe and Russia. And land and water is the beginning topic for us. And so they will talk about the land of Europe and Russia, and then they'll talk about the water features. This is the main heading of the section. Under that main heading, there were two paragraphs, and polders was a new word for us. Polders are in the Netherlands, and it's patches of new land created from previously where there was water. There's probably an error here. If we add the word where, that'll make more sense. And I was curious about polders, so I went ahead and looked them up in Google. And probably this is the best example of a picture of a polder. This as well. So you see the canals where the water is draining, it's being pumped out. This is where the land has been uncovered. And then that land is very fertile land and it's available for farming. So there was a couple different pictures of polders and how that looks from the sky. Size, location, and population. That is our second heading, size, location, and population. So Europe and Russia are part of Eurasia. I'm going to put everything in capital letters for you. So Eurasia is the world's largest landmass. So if we switch and we look to Google Earth, the benefit of using Google Earth or any kind of globe is you can see how big we're really talking. And so when we talk about Eurasia, here's Europe. Asia, the dividing between Africa and Asia is right here. This little triangle is the Sinai Peninsula. It belongs to Asia. Here's the Red Sea. So to the west of that is Africa, to the east is Asia. So that's the dividing line between Africa and Asia. All of this is Asia. And because Asia is so large, we divide it into different regions so that it makes more sense to us. So you have Southwest Asia, which is the Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula and those countries. You have Central Asia. You have East Asia, which is China, all the way here to Japan, the Koreas. You have Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, Indonesia. You have South Asia, which would be India, Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka down here. And so this entire landmass is one large landmass. So all the way from Portugal, all the way over here to the eastern part of China, down here to Southeast Asia. All of that is one large mass, large landmass. And we call it Eurasia. We study it as two different continents though. So even though it's a continent is a large landmass, and this is really one landmass, we study it as two different continents because Europe is vastly different from the rest of the landmass, the rest of Asia. So if we zoom in, here is Europe. We reviewed this last week, but Europe is a peninsula. I think it's easier to see that when you look at it in relation to the rest of the continent. It's a little bit small, right? And here's a peninsula hanging off of basically the Eurasian continent. So if we come in and we focus in on Europe, here's the Scandinavian Peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula, the Apennine Peninsula, the Balkan Peninsula, and the Jutland Peninsula. These are not the only peninsulas. Obviously, if we look a little bit closer, you'll see many, many peninsulas. Here's one, here's one. Lots of places where you have a piece of land surrounded on three sides by water, just like in the United States, Florida is a peninsula. Here are peninsulas off the coast of Ireland. But those five peninsulas are the largest peninsulas. So Scandinavian, Jutland, Iberian, Apennine, Balkan. Europe is the smallest continent, except for Australia, so it's the second smallest continent. This one is looking for Russia. Russia's on both Europe and Asia. Come back here. This is the largest country in the world is Russia. So Russia starts here in Europe. This is the Ural Mountains. This is the dividing line between Europe and Asia. And then Russia continues all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So this is the largest country in the world. For Russia, most people live in this western portion. This is where the land is flat. This is where the weather is most favorable. When you come over here, everything past the Ural Mountains. This area is known as Siberia. You have eastern, western, and central Siberia. And a lot of this is very densely forested land, which makes habitation very difficult. It makes transportation very difficult. If you look here, you don't see a lot of cities. Whereas if you come over here, you see all of these different little states that they have. And this is where the largest cities are. You have Moscow, you're going to have Kiev, Stalingrad, all of those cities will be over here. So Russia, largest country in the world, part of it's in Europe, part of it's in Asia. Europe and Asia are divided by the Ural Mountains. Those mountains are right here. So that's the division between Europe and Asia, is the Ural Mountains. Most of Europe and Russia are at higher elevation, no, higher latitude than the United States. If you look at, here's Europe, kind of shrink it. Where's the United States? Here's the United States. So latitude, remember, are the horizontal lines. So if you come to like Washington, D.C., New York City, that's really Southern Europe. So most of Europe is closer to the latitude of Canada. Oh, one other thing I want to show you. So in Google Earth, there are layers you can turn on. And if you want to know where the sun is, you can turn on a layer called sun. So we can see that the way the Earth is positioned at this moment in time at 10:50 this morning, it's night at most of Europe. It's dark. There's a little sunlight left in these very western portions. And you come around here, obviously we're having daylight in the United States, but nighttime there. All right, a small continent with many people. Europe is the second smallest continent. Australia is smallest. So they're the smallest ones. Europe has about 44 different countries. You won't learn all of them for your map quiz. We leave out a lot of the smaller ones like Luxembourg and Liechtenstein, but you learn the most major countries. Russia is the largest country in the world, at twice the size of the United States, and most European countries have higher population densities than other countries. For major landforms, this is our third major section. Remember, population density is the number of people per square mile. The continent of Europe is a peninsula, something we talked about already, which is a body of land nearly surrounded by water, surrounded usually on three sides. Europe's location in the blank, combined with its many bays and harbors, enabled Western European countries to become leaders in the shipping industry. This should be Atlantic Ocean. Combined with bays and harbors, enabled Western European countries to become leaders in shipping. Russia, however, lies along the often frozen Arctic Ocean, which has prevented shipping. However, land movement, and we'll look at this on the map in a minute, land movement between Russia and the rest of Europe has always been fairly easy. If we come back and we look at this, even though they have a high latitude, a really high latitude, and we can turn on the grid as well. So we can see if we come up here, here's the Arctic Circle. This is 65 degrees north, this is 60 degrees north, 55 degrees north, very far north. However, there's a warm ocean current called the North Atlantic Current that comes along the coast of the United Kingdom up along the Norwegian coast here. And because of that, they have always been able to ship. This doesn't freeze. And so the Vikings were Norwegians and Icelanders, and these people were great salesmen throughout the great sailors throughout the earliest times. And it's because these harbors don't freeze. However, for Russia, even though their latitude is much the same, they're right along the Arctic Circle, they're farther north here and they don't have that warm ocean current. So the warm ocean current here is what keeps these harbors and bays open. When you come over here, this area is all frozen. And so it's another reason why living in Siberia is very, very difficult. Living in the Siberian part of Russia. For plains, uplands, and mountains of Europe, you have 4 regions in Europe. The first region is the Northwestern Highlands. These are in the far north, and they include old mountain systems. They're not good for farming, but they do support a successful timber industry, and they tend to raise sheep and goats in Spain and Scotland. So the Northwestern Highlands, that area primarily is through here. And you see that there are some higher elevations in through here. You can see the snow caps on these mountains in Norway, mountains here, mountains here. So this area, the Northwestern Highlands, is literally the northwest portion of Europe. The North European plain is significantly important, and that stretches from France really all the way to Russia. And it has the most productive farmland and the largest cities in Europe. The Northern European plain is essentially this entire portion of Europe. So from France right through here, all the way to Russia. So through Germany, through Poland, through Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And this is where most of the farming in Europe is done. The Central Uplands is the next section. So the Central Uplands are a region of highlands. They're made of mountains and plateaus. They are in the center of southern Europe. They're really rocky land. They're not suitable for farmland, although there is some farming done down in the valleys of the mountains. And they are typically used for industry and mining. Also, you can add in some tourism. So the Central Uplands, if you come here and you find the Alps, you can see them through here. This is where the Alps are. This would be the Central Uplands region. The Alpine mountain system, let me backtrack. Where the Alps are, that would be the Alpine mountain system. The uplands are just north of that. So the uplands would be this area. So think about as you approach the mountains, you have the uplands area that's reaching up to the mountains. The Alpine mountain system stretches from France to the Balkan Peninsula. If you look only at the Alpine or at the Alps range, you don't see that. But the Pyrenees through here, and then you have the Alps, and then it comes over here and you see these are the Carpathian Mountains. All of this is one system with different ranges. So the Pyrenees into the Alps, into the Carpathians, one mountain system. And that's the Alpine mountain system. Alps are the highest mountains in the system. And then some farming is possible down in the valleys. We will end here because I'm going to run out of time. And we'll continue this when we do the waterways.